How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer. I'm not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
is the end. There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the stone here. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone here. This is the final time. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone here. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone here. This is the final
Marky got with Sharon, Sharon got Sharia. She was sharing Sharon's outlook on the topic of disease. Mikey had a facial scar and Bobby was a racist. They were all in love with dying, they were doing it in Texas. Tommy played piano like a kid out in the rain, and then he lost his leg in Dallas. He was dancing with the train. They were all in love with dying, they were drinking from a fountain that was pouring like an avalanche coming down the mountain.
I don't mind the sun sometimes, the images it shows. I can taste you on my lips and smell you in my clothes.
What up, everyone? Happy Wednesday. Why is my camera so close? Is it always this zoomed in? That's better. I get. Well, it makes. It's weird to. It's okay. Okay. Whatever. I'm live on the internet. I'm here. I may have been running a little late. I'm sorry. There was some stuff I had to take care of, including. Can I tell you guys, I am about to strangle Amazon because my book, which I feel like I suffered to write this book. I didn't intend to suffer to write this book. This book was supposed to be a tiny little project, and I was like, this is going to be real quick, and I'm going to use AI to source all this stuff, and it's going to be real quick to debunk the Communist Manifesto. And this is something that was supposed to be a tiny little project that took over my life. Only for a couple weeks, because the reason it took over my life is because I banged the whole thing on in a couple weeks. And the result was a 400-page fucking book debunking the Communist Manifesto, and it's really good, and it has like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sources in it, and it also has the full version of the Communist Manifesto in it, because it seems prudent to me that if you're going to write a book debunking the Communist Manifesto, you actually have to include the Communist Manifesto in it. And it is dedicated to Sophie. It is dedicated to our favorite communist, Sophie Lewis, of course. And the fact that it has the full version of the Communist Manifesto in it is really tweaking Amazon. Now, it shouldn't be tweaking Amazon, because Amazon has dozens of people just selling the Communist Manifesto on their website. The reason that is the Communist Manifesto is in the public domain. It's been in the public domain for a long ass time. Karl Marx is long dead. Friedrich Engels is long dead. Samuel Moore, who is the guy that translated it back in 1888, is long dead. This document is in the public domain. I have been arguing with Amazon for 2 weeks about this document. And every single time, they just come back to me asking for more information about this document. They're like, what year did Karl Marx die? What year did the translator die? Where was it originally published? And I'm like, you fucking morons. They literally could have asked me for all this information in one singular email the first time they emailed me about this. But no, it's just like, it's piecemeal. We need this piece of information. Okay, here you go. We need this piece of information. Okay, here you go. And every single time that Amazon asks me for something, I then have to wait several days to hear back from them. So when I got an email from them this morning saying, well, we need to know what year Samuel Moore, the translator, died and where he translated it and what year he translated it. And do you have a website backing this up? And I'm like, I literally gave you this information last week. Last week. And so now, this book is supposed to launch on Friday. The Kindle version of the book is up. The Kindle version of the book, apparently they have no problem with. But it is the print version of the book that they refuse to approve and just keep asking more questions that have literally already been answered over and over and over again. So this book was supposed to launch on Friday. I now have no idea if it will launch on Friday, and that makes me really upset because part of the point of this book was it was supposed to launch on the anniversary of Karl Marx's death. And so now Amazon has chosen to fuck up the entire plan because they can't wrap their head around the fact that the Communist Manifesto is in the public domain. So I'm sorry, I'm a bit tweaked today because this really pisses me off. This really pisses me off. There's no reason for this. And do you guys want to guess what types of names I've been dealing with? Do you guys want to guess what the names of the people are that I've been dealing with? Oh, they're all fucking Indian. They're all Indian. Because this is a process that has been completely outsourced to people who do not speak English in India. And if people wonder why I am 100% against all H-1B visas, if people wonder why I am against all this immigration bullshit, it's because literally every single effing time that I have to deal with someone with an Indian name, nothing good comes of that situation. Literally nothing good. And so why on earth would I want to import more people who can't speak English, who have no desire to learn how to speak English, who provide absolutely shitty, egregiously shitty customer service? Why would I want to import more of these people to America where I have to deal with them more often? So if people are looking forward to the book, I'm sorry. I am literally doing every single thing that I can do to get this book published by Friday, which was the original launch date, and Amazon is just doing everything they can to drag their feet. And so if people have an issue with that, then what I'm going to recommend you do, hang on, is I tweeted about this earlier because Twitter apparently is the only way you can actually get customer service sometimes. And I think the very best thing that people can do, just reloaded for no good reason. Okay, that's nice. That's nice, browser, just reloading for no good reason. I think if people want to, oh shit, that's not going to work. Oh, that might work. I don't know. I just put the link to the tweet in the chat. If people want to reply and tag Amazon KDP, which is the publishing arm of Amazon, and say, we've been looking forward to this book and we want it launched on Friday as scheduled, please feel free to do so. Because one of the things that Amazon keeps saying to me is, Carlin, your customers, your audience deserves high quality information or else they're going to be upset. And I'm like, well, you know what my customers deserve, Amazon? Do you know what my audience deserves? My audience deserves the book being launched that you've been dragging your feet on for 2 fucking weeks. My audience was told this book was launching on March 14th, which is the anniversary of Karl Marx's death. This date only comes around once a year. I worked my ass off to get this book done so it could be launched on that date, and now the Indian customer service is fucking up my entire schedule, and I don't appreciate it. So if you really want to serve the audience, Amazon, approve the fucking book. All right. I'm sorry to do a rant, but if you want to know why I was a couple minutes late, it's because I've been dealing with this bullshit, okay? That's why I was late, all right? Anyway, now that I have worked my feelings out of my system on the incompetence of Amazon's customer service, and hopefully they will just approve the damn book, which they should have done last week, we need to move on. So a couple quick things, guys. Number one, if you feel like getting a book on Amazon that's already been approved, as a reminder, A Brief History of Racism is available. This is a book I launched a couple weeks ago. It is very literally a brief history of racism. It is a book that explores the origin and the evolution of the definition of the term racism, all the way from when it was published back in when it was originally invented back in 1902 by a guy named Richard Henry Pratt. And he invented the term racism, and I took it from that point, and I said, how has the term of the racism evolved and grown and been redefined since then? And I tracked it all the way up to present day. That is what A Brief History of Racism is about. If you have read the book, please make sure you give it a review on Amazon, 5 stars only. If you have anything less than 5 stars, please keep it to yourself. But I appreciate everyone that's been reviewing the book. I appreciate all the positive feedback. Hey, apparently I'm a #1 new release in the censorship category right now, which is pretty cool. Always nice. Oh, look, we're beating out American Bolsheviks. That's great. So that's good. You know, whatever. If you feel like picking up that book, you can. And of course, if you want access to all of my books, actually, if you want to read the Debunking the Communist Manifesto book, it's actually available to my Red Menace Collective members right now. Because when people sign up as part of the Red Menace Collective, which is redmenacecollective.substack.com, they get access to all of the book chapters that I'm writing as I'm writing them. They also get access to a free digital copy of the book before it's released publicly. And if you go to the download finished book section, you will find that Debunking the Communist Manifesto as a PDF is actually already available to my Red Menace Collective members. So if you're a supporter on that site, Amazon can't keep us down. I've already given you the PDF, and please enjoy, and I hope you guys do enjoy it. Of course, that doesn't help the print version be printed. It will obviously be printed eventually. Like, this argument is going to get solved. I'm just going to be miffed if it's not on Friday when I originally scheduled to launch it for that date, for that very, very, very specific reason, that it is the anniversary of Karl Marx's death. I wanted that date specifically. So hopefully they get their shit in gear and they approve the book tomorrow, which there really is no reason they shouldn't other than they are incompetent. But if you don't want to wait, you can just join the Red Menace Collective and download the PDF on there right now. Thank you, Tatum, for the super chat. I appreciate it. You can also find copies of the chapters of the new book that I'm working on, which is called Be Gay, Do Crime. This is the true story of the Mary Nardini gang, which is really the origin of militant queer activism as we know it today. If you want to know where all the crazy queer stuff really comes from, like where the really militant stuff comes from, I am telling you that story in my new book. It is fascinating, and I'm really enjoying writing it, and we've got 3 chapters of it available right now. There will, of course, be more coming, and I will be releasing this book on May 1st, and there is no public domain content in well, actually, shit, there actually is public domain content in the book. There actually is. So hopefully, I think I'm going to have less trouble with this one, though, than the Communist Manifesto one, but this book will officially be coming out on May 1st, and so if you want early access to it, head over to redmenacecollective.substack.com and sign up over there, and you will be able to get early access. Amazon sells Dennis Prager's theories, going through the Torah line by line. This shouldn't be difficult to approve your book. No, it really shouldn't be difficult. It should have been done last week. But here is where we are. So hopefully it'll get approved tomorrow, and I'm really sorry, guys, if it doesn't launch on Friday. The pre-order already should have been up. This already should have been taken care of last week, and it is entirely the shitty customer service on Amazon's part that is the reason that it is not currently up. So I'm sorry for that, but I hope to make it up to you because we got a spy stream tonight. Actually, in about an hour, little over an hour, we are going to be doing a spy stream. We're going to be going inside a live leftist training called Fighting Fascism. This is a leftist training and organizing call that is taking place tonight. So we're kind of just killing time before then. And and if you want to join us for the spy stream, you have to go over to my main Substack, which is different than the Red Menace Collective. This is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, and join via the spy stream link. You will get access to the links that we will be doing it on the Substack. If you are a supporter on my locals, on my Patreon, on my Twitter subscriptions, or on my YouTube channel memberships, you also have access to the links. I've already posted all that information publicly, so we got to jump right into things because we're going to be doing a spy stream in a little while, and I thought we would kill some time by watching this presentation from the Center for LGBTQ and Gender Studies in Religion, CLGS, at the Pacific School of Religion in, of course, Berkeley, California. And this just happened to pop up on my suggestions, and I was like, this is nice, light fare before our spy stream. It is called Where Two or More, Polyamorous Loving as a Spiritual Community Ethic and Practice. Now, as you guys know, polyamory is one of the ways that queer Marxists are trying to queer the nuclear family. They do view this as the alternative to the nuclear family. And so let's listen to them talk about it and let's see what they have to say. And we'll do this for about an hour and then we will go do our spy stream. All right, so we're jumping right into it, guys. Please mount the like button if you would be so kind. Please make sure you are subscribed on whatever platform you're watching on, whether that be YouTube or Rumble or X for people who are over on X. And let's see what this guy has to say.
We're so very honored that you are with us here at the Center for LGBTQ and Gender Studies. I'm the managing director. I'm the Reverend Dr. Roland Stringfellow of Pacific School Religion's Center for LGBTQ and Gender Studies. We're so very grateful to have you. Today's topic, I'm glad you're here because it is going to be a great one, a hot one. Because as many spiritual communities are trying to look for ways to expand their welcome of individuals into their communities, the way couples and individuals are looking and expressing themselves are quite different, and many congregational leaders need some assistance, myself included, when it comes to understanding polyamorous relationships, and not just in terms of welcoming into communities, but indeed, I would even say some of the rules of engagement when it comes to polyamorous relationships. So our presenter today is the coordinator of CLGS's API, or the Asian American Pacific Islander Roundtable, Maj May, and we're so very grateful that Maj is going to be leading us in this discussion. And I will actually turn it over to them and as I keep on inviting people into the room. So let me spotlight you and take it away.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to see folks in this space. My name is Maj Mai. I use they, them, or he, him pronouns, and I am the Asian American Pacific Islander Roundtable Coordinator at the Pacific School of Religion.
CLGS. He, him.
I'm also known as the Majestic Maj. And so people know me by many different names and many different spaces and many different places as well. So I'm just really grateful to be here with folks today.
Or the Majestic
A couple of just housekeeping things for folks to be aware of. This meeting is being recorded for the sake of being accessible to different community members in the future. I am someone who considers myself a time traveler. And so sometimes people will get information on different timelines and things.
A time traveler.
So welcoming folks into the space. Feel comfortable to be present as you feel led. The workshop will be somewhat interactive in the sense that there will be a meditation and there will be reflections. We're not doing a meditation. There are some nature imagery that includes images of mushrooms, images of stars, images of bumblebees, as well as geese. So just wanted to let folks know that from accessibility standpoint, I know that some folks have different feelings or sensations that come up when they see different images on the screen.
Yeah, I'm definitely afraid of mushrooms.
Share my screen in this moment.
This is already great. This is already making up for the frustration with Amazon. Whoa!
So my presentation is here.
Are you saying, Polly, you have to do mushrooms to be polyamorous?
Folks can see. Can everyone see the presentation on the screen?
No, we see your desktop.
Darn, let me stop and share
I
again.
definitely don't want to see this person's porn, I'll tell you that.
I just like having my the actual presentation right in front of me so that people can see my face looking at them. Okay, better?
Better.
Wonderful, thank you, Roland. What a great support. So for today's workshop space, experimental learning community, we'll be discussing where two or more are gathered, polyamorous loving as a spiritual community ethic and a practice. So who am I and what does this work mean to me? Anytime I present, even if folks have been in this space 100 million times, 2 million times, 1,000 times, I always like to let folks know the ways in which I'm contextualizing myself in this particular conversation. So I am someone who identifies as a Black, Vietnamese, trans, queer, non-binary, disabled, neuroexpansive being, flesh, spirit, and portal moving through the world. I am someone who does identify as
Wait. What? I am contextualizing myself as a trans, queer, non-binary, disabled, gender expansive portal moving through the world. Let's just, again.
I am someone who identifies as a Black, Vietnamese, trans, queer, non-binary, disabled, neuroexpansive being, flesh, spirit, and portal moving through the world. I am someone who does identify as polyamorous, but within a variety of different contexts. So when someone says they identify as polyamorous, you cannot assume you know what that means, because polyamory might mean something for different people.
Of course you can't
For me and mine, I would consider myself someone who identifies as solo polyamorous, or someone who identifies as a relationship anarchist, or as someone who just likes who they like, and the meaning that we create in the relationship is the meaning that we construct together. So that is the framework and the model.
What the fuck is solo polyamorous?
On which I'm moving from when it comes to polyamory. I am not the end all be all educator when it comes to polyamory. There are a lot of folks who've been doing this work way longer than I have. This is not necessarily a polyamory 101 workshop per se, but this is kind of an exploration of what polyamory could look like, or what relationship could look like, period, for people living within this particular time, space, and reality.
Okay.
So we will start off with a meditative reflection to kind of get our creative juices flowing and to kind of put us in that headspace.
No, we're on a time. We're on a schedule. We're not doing the meditative reflection. I'm sorry. We got to get into the content. We got other things to do today. We are not doing a meditation. Anytime these people tell you to do a meditation, they're trying to trick you into being basically hypnotized, and you don't buy into this stuff. Do not breathe in deeply. Do not like let your guard down. Do not allow these people to impact you spiritually ever. No, but you can meditate on your own. We are not doing the meditation. This is very important, guys. No, she's still got her eyes closed. Remember, I've been spiritually impacted by these guys. I had to get fucking exorcism after being around these guys.
In this collect.
No meditation reflection. No. Do not go. Exactly.
Typing in stack.
Do not go into the Pamela. Do not go into the light. Don't do it.
Here in front of us.
Okay.
For folks who would like to respond, you can put yourself on stack by either typing in stack in the chat. You can also raise your hand as well, and we will field responses that way.
We can listen to their reflections,
again, the questions
but we're not going to get tricked into meditating.
What was that meditative experience like for you, and what were some of your responses to those questions?
No, you can't. You can't, because trans and queer are not the same thing.
Yes, Jared.
So you don't know that they're trans. They're
the
queer.
Biggest one
this is a queer person. Not the same
thing. That bugged me, actually, was, do you deserve to be loved by more than one person?
Wow.
And it was the word deserve.
Do you deserve?
I don't know if I deserve, but I am definitely worthy of being loved by more than one person.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for that sharing. And it's okay for folks. I enjoyed how Jared was like, that bugged me. We hold space for the feelings that come up in this space. Even if it's like, you know what, Mage? That was irritating. I didn't like that. That's okay. I made a meditation. So that's also invited in that as well. There's a question in the chat from Kendall who asked, can you talk more about that distinction at Jared?
Sure. The word deserve for me denotes privilege.
Wow.
And so so that word bugs me. The word deserve bugs me because it denotes privilege. Like, and why am I more privileged than anyone else? But worthy doesn't include that denotation for myself. Worthy is just, my worth as a human being is sufficient that I could be loved by more than one person. I could love more than one person. That's what the difference is to me.
Wonderful. Beautiful dialogue. Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, Dexy. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Please feel free to correct me.
Yes, that's Dexy.
Ooh, that's
I have similar feelings come up around not the same denotation around deserve, but I think when for me, like the feeling of like deserving or like the question of do you deserve, like I think for me that kind of reflects to, for me, periods of time or like the phrase feels like it comes from a place of like you don't deserve, or there's a part of you that is remembering times where it was asked like as a rhetorical question, like do you deserve, why do you think that you deserve this? And I think that that's why, at least for me, like that sensation or feeling of like, do I deserve things? Do I deserve, even though I practice and like have like multiple partners or have had like periods of time and relationships where it's like I've experienced it, I've been in that, and still like the question, I don't think it's a bad question. It's also like helps for me, like it's like a thing where this is like a reflection of like a part of me that feels maybe hurt or like has experiences of like me not being deserving, or and also for me there's also like the sort of other side of like not being worthy, but it's interesting to hear other people's perspectives on that, or like having that sort of like activation feeling when it comes to hearing what comes up around deserve or deserving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like they're definitely like probative questions. In the designing of them, I went back and forth on that question a lot actually. And I was like, do I leave it in? Do I take it out? And then like, I'm a little spicy, so I'm like, I'm gonna leave it in there and then see what happens. Mostly because one, we can always have a debate, or not even debate, but we can always like probe and see what comes up for folks. And also for me, the dialogue of the response is more important than the actual framing, because you learn a lot about how you practice love in that way. Yeah, so thank y'all for lifting that up. We'll take one more. Yes, Kendall.
Thank you all so much for setting the vibe. So many things came up. I also feel a way about like deserving, worthiness, whatnot. But like I think what really kind of stuck out to me was, first of all, I just felt a lot of grief in going through that exercise, and just like love lost and gone astray. And I also like really kind of was sitting with that ecosystem question, like if love was ecosystem, what would that ecosystem look like? And I definitely feel like I've moved from like so many different ecosystems to one another. Like I feel like, I mean, if you could even count a city as an ecosystem, I feel like I was in a city at some point of love, and the way that cities alienate, but people are always still trying to find a way back to one another. And now I feel like I'm in a desert because I'm single for the first time in a long time. And I'm polyamorous as well. So I mean, I had like a lot of love going on, and now I have none in the same way. And so now I find myself in this desert seeking a new way to think about love and like new ecosystems to find love within. And that's why I'm here too. So I'm excited for, I don't know, this part of my journey. So thanks.
Yes. Thank you so much. I love that you brought in grief, because one of the things that I think about often about the phrase where two or more are gathered is like, what does that mean in a pandemic? What does that mean in a pandemic where gathering does feel so dangerous for a lot of different people?
Yeah,
particularly
it's
folks who
definitely
are disabled,
dangerous. You should probably
right?
not do it.
There's a lot of grief there. The ecosystem language is one I've been exploring for a little bit for myself. And sometimes it feels like ethereal and fairy-like and beautiful. And then other times it's just like, oh, like it's wrecked. Like, what do I do with this? How do I feel in this? And then looking at the world and like, ooh, what does this world look like? Right. So thank y'all for just going through that exercise, for being vulnerable and for
yes,
probing some more.
Thank you all for being vulnerable.
So it would be remiss of me to do a workshop that's connected to polyamory without defining what polyamory is. Again, this whole presentation is not like a polyamory 101 workshop per se, but it is helpful to offer a framing of like what polyamory could mean or can mean for different people. And so in defining polyamory, I always like to figure out what Wikipedia says or what general Google says at large, not because I always feel like the definitions are the best definitions, but because I feel like when people are encountering a word for the first time, they will often put it in their search engine. And this will be oftentimes the first thing that comes up for folks. So from Wikipedia, polyamory is defined as the practice of or desire for romantic relationships with more than one partner at the same time, with the informed consent of all parties involved, right? So that is
Leonard, this isn't about that. This isn't about that. Why would we care if they have sex with multiple people? This has nothing to do with sex. This has to do with they are trying to replace the nuclear family with polyamory as a way to subvert the norms of society. That's what this is. And so any notion that this has to do with sex is just a misguided understanding.
Definition and one way of defining polyamory. I want to also lift up not just a definition of what, but also what polyamory might look like in real time for people. So this comes from an article by Kathy Ria, where they name and articulate a polyamorous person could be dating 1, 2, or more people simultaneously, or maybe none at all. With the full consent of whomever else we are seeing at the time, we are free to explore the possibilities. Polyamory grants us the opportunity to foster multiple loving, nurturing relationships that are rewarding in different ways. So looking at this definition and going back to this definition, there's a slight distinction in the sense that this definition kind of hinges on romantic within the framework of polyamory or within the framework of relationships. And this one just names dating, right? Polyamory as an action, right? Not quite as a label of relational category, right? And I like the word dating here because what is dating, right? For a lot of folks, dating can look like taking someone out to dinner. For a lot of folks, dating can look like asking somebody questions on an intimate level. For a lot of folks, dating could look like buying someone flowers, right? That does not necessarily denote romantic or non-romantic or platonic relationship. That just simply says we're engaging in a particular type of way, right? What I also like about this definition is that it names, you could be dating 1 or 2 people, or you could be not dating anybody at all, right? So there's a fluidity in this particular definition that doesn't quite show up in this one, or maybe I want to say doesn't show up, but might provide a little more context or different context. Consent is also in this definition. And then it also, this definition or this description takes it a little bit further by naming polyamory grants us the opportunity, the possibility to foster multiple loving, nurturing relationships that are rewarding in different ways, okay? And then another definition or framework that I want to offer comes from a polyamorous educator, Leanne Yao, who says, poly means many and amory means love. While sex is, of course, a part of love.
No. Do not bring this conservative bullshit into my chat. Do not do it. This has nothing to do with the topic being discussed. If you do not understand the topic being discussed, then you are welcome to ask questions. But I promise you, this is not the day to put conservative bullshit talking points into my chat and expect that I'm going to be receptive to that.
Can be a loving part of a relationship for a lot of people. The point of polyamory is to foster intimacy, connection, and commitment with multiple partners, right? With multiple partners. And so Leanne just kind of breaks it down by the formation of the word itself, poly, many, and amory, love, so many loves. And then they also denote that it kind of goes beyond the scope of sex per se, but also
it's not about sex.
Adds in other values to relational life that could exist, that being intimacy, connection, and commitment to multiple partners. And so what I want to lift up and kind of just briefly describing polyamory, and there's so many other definitions and concepts of polyamory out there or practices of polyamory out there, it is that what polyamory can offer us as a framework is that, it offers this dynamic of love or relationship as a dynamic social construction. Love as a dynamic and social construction. Dynamic meaning like there's a lot of things going on, and social construction being that relationship by many definitions, depending on the people who are defining them, can be constructed and mean different things. Other constructions that exist out there, race is a social construction. Gender is a social construction. Able-bodiedness is a social construction. Like these are meanings or words or concepts and frameworks that people have imbued a different essence to, depending on their location and where they come from and what that means within the context of their lived experiences. This framing of polyamory also kind of offers this notion that love or relationship kind of offers a value system or ushers in a community ethic of some sort. You can put a whole bunch of folks who might identify across different...
So now they're talking about how this is a political act. They're flat out saying, for anyone who didn't believe me 5 minutes ago when I said that this is not about sex, they are framing polyamory, being in a polyamorous relationship, as a political act that they are using to change social relationships, articulate their values, and build the type of system that they want to build. This has nothing to do with sex.
Polyamorous frameworks and spectrums in the same room, and they might not still be on the same page about what polyamory is supposed to look like, what it feels like, and how one does polyamory, right? What is that rooted in? What does that mean? So love being a value system or community ethic that a certain group of people, 2 or more people, can construct together and develop a community out of per se, right? And that is what I want to lift up in this space, because when we are engaging in a mononormativity or this idea that compulsive monogamy or systems oriented and supported monogamous frameworks, we might not often think about what our value system or ethics are because we've been presented to them from a very young age, from a socialized standpoint. This is what relationship looks like. This is how you do relationship, and it is what it is, right? Polyamory says, or better yet, ask the question, what are the value systems in which we are working from? What are the ethics in which we are building our relationships from as well, okay? And then last but not least, polyamory offers us this idea that love and relationship can be a movement practice.
It's a movement practice.
It's
a political act.
Practice, right? What does that look like in real time? What does dating look like in real time? Who is involved in that movement in real time? How does that show up in my lived experiences in real time, right? Past, present, future, non-linearly, in the words of J.T. Perry, polyrhythmically, what can that movement practice look like, okay? Pausing for breath. Does anyone have any questions, any kind of like ruminations? That's a word, yes, thus far?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm at work, so I'm sorry if there's like some crazy noises or whatever, but yeah, what you said about values in relation to polyamory, I definitely think about that a lot. And I think that's definitely the reason that my partner and I decided to open up, or at least like a big part of it. Because when I think about like monogamy, I do think of it as like compulsive and something that we just kind of default to. That's kind of what we've been taught. But I definitely think that expectation of like limiting your love to one person is definitely rooted in like capitalist standards of like social relation in terms of like how we're isolated into like our own little lives and whatever. And there's so many different ways in which like...
I'm sorry, what? It's rooted in capitalist standards? Hang on, that is a clip. Hopefully my clipping tool works. Let me see if I've got the recording configured properly. It's rooted in capitalist standards. You don't say. It's rooted in capitalist standards of capitalist property relationships because this is a political act.
Yeah, what you said about values in relation to polyamory, I definitely think about that a lot. And I think that's definitely the reason that my partner and I decided to open up, or at least like a big part of it. Because when I think about like monogamy, I do think of it as like compulsive and something that we just kind of default to. That's kind of what we've been taught. But I definitely think that expectation of like limiting your love to one person is definitely rooted in like capitalist standards of like social relation in terms of like how we're isolated into like our own little lives and whatever. And there's so many different ways in which like, of course, like labor is like alienated from like your actual like desire to provide labor to society, and also just you're alienated from everyone that you're working with, and then like the questions of the nuclear family and things like that. So I think like partially my relationship towards polyamory is one of like curiosity for me in terms of like how I can better align with like my own values in terms of like socialism and anti-capitalism and stuff like that. But yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It does invite us to pause and go, what are my values? What does that look like? How does that feel for me? So thank you for being vulnerable in that way. Yes, Janae.
I mean, could we have found a better clip? Could we have found a better clip? Let me just make sure that's saved. I did clip that liquid marble. I did clip it. I'm just making sure it's saved. That was every quiet part out loud. Like I said at the beginning, these people want to use polyamorous relationships to replace the nuclear family because they believe that the nuclear family is the literal means of reproduction of capitalism through something called social reproduction theory. Without the nuclear family, we don't have capitalism because they believe that capitalist values are reproduced within the nuclear family model. So if they can replace the nuclear family with polyamory, that gets them closer to their queer Marxist society, because ultimately the goal is to abolish capitalism, and they feel like they need to disrupt the nuclear family, the social reproduction of capitalism within the family, in order to overthrow capitalism as a system. If you're new, if this all sounds like crazy to you, please ask me questions in the chat, okay? So if you're new to this stuff and you're like, that sounds insane, okay, I understand it, we've all been there. Ask us questions. We will make sure you understand the perspective, because it's really important that people understand this.
Yeah, a thing that came up for me when you had the slide up around love being a movement practice. So I'm a dancer of the Black improvisational dance tradition, and yeah, a lot of that practice for me is about movement, both independently and collectively with dance partners, as a practice and consent. So this like love as a movement practice, okay. I'm like connecting directly to my own practice, and like love as a consent practice that's always in motion, always figuring out what the point of grounding in my needs, my desires, where my needs and my desires and your needs and your desires meet. That was just an interesting addition to loop in love as parallel or even part of that idea.
Yes, I love that. I think of that song Orbit by Neo, where they talk about people engaging and interacting with each other as a form of orbiting with one another, how we encircle one another, how we exist, and what is the gravitational pull that leads us together in connection with one another. So I love the embodied piece of it. What does that mean with bodies, with physical bodies? Love that. Yes, Dexy.
I also really love that. I think my original conception and thoughts and kind of trajectory when the sort of phrase love as a movement practice was spoken, I definitely went to action. Love is like a movement as in politics, and like the interpersonal also being political, and the way that movement work only exists when we can be in deep and radical like love, and like the liberation only sort of can be sustainable when we also are able to be in and practice interpersonal relationality, and that being the only way that we can do any of this. But thinking about movement as also literal, physical, embodied dance, and that relationship with like an evolving, continuous consent practice, I think is like a huge aspect of like also like the sort of broader, like more big picture, like what does like moving towards liberation look like? How do we do it in our day to day, or how do we do it with one another? And I think that that's something that I'm also chewing on, and like both sort of conceptions and how they kind of like are not like definitely not separate, but they're like kind of inside each other.
Do you know all those times that I have begged you in the past to stop listening to James Lindsay? The reason that I have begged you in the past to stop listening to James Lindsay is because you use words like praxis, which don't actually mean anything in the context in which we are operating. You never hear people say or use that word. So I would recommend very, very strongly, if you want to understand the left, you need to discard the bullshit vocabulary that you picked up from James entirely. Discard it entirely. It doesn't mean anything. When they say movement practice, what they mean is they are living their values in real life. That is what that means. That is what normal people understand. No one knows the word praxis. It is. No. Don't fucking bullshit me. It is. James is the only person that has used that term repeatedly, and I know you've been listening to him, and I know you've been listening to him for a long time, so don't fucking bullshit me. Everyone who uses that term got it from James. It is not going to be helpful to you. If you want to continue to ignore me, you can continue to not learn anything, and eventually we'll get tired of it, and we'll just ban you like I've done it before. No, you don't. No, you don't. You're so full of shit. Okay, we're going to test you. How does the left define capitalism go? You listen to me? How does the left define capitalism go? This is just for him. This is for no one else. I told you not to test me today, and here you are testing me. I just unbanned a whole bunch of people on my channel, which is why I can even see you to begin with. And here you are doing exactly the same thing that got you banned in the first place. How does the left define capitalism go? We are not continuing with this presentation until you tell me how the left defines capitalism. You need to prove that you've been listening. We're waiting, holding up the entire presentation just for you. You can also say, I don't know. But we're waiting for your answer. How does the left define capitalism? We're waiting. We're waiting. It's very simple. This does not take a long, in-depth explanation. How does the left define capitalism? Yeah, I mean, this is oh, we got it right. Okay. All right. What do they mean when they say private property ownership? Next question. What do they mean when they say private property ownership? What does that even mean? I don't understand this either. Why do people think they can come into my chat and one-up me? Do you think I haven't been doing this for years now? Do you think I don't see through every fucking bullshit thing that people say? Cause it's not that I've heard it one time, it's that I've heard it about 9,000 fucking times. What does private property ownership mean? We're waiting. What does private property ownership mean? Feel like I fucked up my knitting and I lost a stitch somewhere. That's all right. What does private property ownership mean? We're waiting. This is not a hard answer. Kudos to you for getting the first part of the question right. Now let's see if you got the second part. Let's see if you know what that actually means. What does private property ownership mean? Yup, and every time someone tests me in the chat, you end up annoying the entire rest of the audience. because you couldn't just stop and listen. What does private property ownership mean, bro? We're waiting. Holding up the entire stream just for you. What does it mean? We're waiting. What does private property ownership mean? Why can't you answer the question? You've been spending so much time listening to me, you don't know the answer to this question? What does it mean? You've got 30 seconds before I ban you again. You can either answer the question or say, I don't know. What does private property ownership mean? Do 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 bum bum. No, this is not the correct answer. We already know that capitalism is defined as private property ownership. I am looking for a specific definition of what private property ownership means. And your 30 seconds have passed. So last chance. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, he doesn't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. He has now been banned again. For people in the chat, what does private property ownership mean? We're going to give him a 24-hour ban. He can sit his ass in timeout and listen. Just so people think I'm not being just so people know I'm not being unreasonable. For everyone in the chat now, what does private property ownership mean? Your private property ownership means your ability to own a home, your ability to own land, your ability to own a private business, parental rights, individual liberties. Means a couple other things too. It could mean your ability to own an apartment rental that you rent out as a landlord. Could mean your intellectual property. Private property ownership is defined as bourgeois property, which is property that you can use to create privatized individual wealth, not to be confused with personal property ownership, which has to do with just stuff that you own, like your cat and your dog and your truck and your computer and your phone and stuff like that. That's not private property. That's considered to be personal property. It's not the same thing. Your home, your kids, your rental property, your small businesses. See, anyone who, this is the point of this exercise, anyone who actually listens to me and actually watches my content knows the answer to these questions. So this is how I know when people are coming into my chat and trying to bullshit me. I listen to you all the time and I just think you're great, but James Lindsay is better and he uses words like praxis and I just don't know what any of this stuff means because I only listen to James Lindsay, but I listen to you too. I listen to you all the time. And then you go, okay, what's this very basic definition? And they have no idea. All right. Thank you. Moving on.
But yeah, I love thinking about that. I love like all the ways that your brain can sort of go when it comes to thinking about love in that way. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Stunning and brave.
We've been on the call for 40 minutes maybe, and like, do you hear the way people are talking about love? Like, do y'all hear the way people are talking about relationship? Like,
amazing.
I don't know how many spaces I get to have like this in this way. I don't know how many spaces that people get to hear love articulated this way, right? It's transformative. Yes, Ro will be our last stack for this section.
Yeah, hi. I'm also still feeling really pulled to like love as movement practice. And I think about made actually a post that you made specifically, like the first line of a post. It was like a video of you and you were like, it said something like, I didn't always used to be this fluid. And like this, like I didn't always used to have this much movement. And as I think about like my own practice of polyamory has developed, like a really core tenet for me has been my ability to elevate my friendships alongside my romantic relationships and like break down the rigidity between platonic and romantic, because when it comes to that like movement, when it comes to me like moving through the world in terms of like who is supporting me in that, like bestie stays on the emergency contact list, you know what I mean? And so like being able to move outside of the like compulsory monogamy, like this one person must meet all of your needs, allows me to like lean back into this movement practice of and redirecting my love towards myself to let me move with the fluidity that I desire to. And as I do that, I'm allowed to then communicate with those that I'm in relationship with, whatever that relationship is, and have more honest conversations about what movements feel good and natural to them. What are the ways that they desire to move with me? And I really appreciate that, because I think when I like conceptually and just like in real time see, these systems of oppression, it is both about like dividing and creating rigidity, but also kind of creating really ambiguous like monoliths. And when I'm allowed to move at my own pace and have my own unique rhythm, that is a full expression of myself. Like I'm able to resist all of those things. And when I'm able to do that and engage in that practice with my community, it makes it much easier for me to continue to push into more spaces as my true self, because of, that reciprocity, that we're not just engaging in a love practice, between one another, but knowing that like my practice of love rooted in myself is able to like fuel my own movements, but also like kind of co-sustain the relationships that I'm engaging in.
Yes. I just have to do like a little, a little running in place if y'all don't see my feet.
Running in
yes,
okay.
Yes.
Stunning and brave, girl.
Yes.
Stunning and brave.
Yes. Affirmations. All y'all. I think for me, just listening to y'all speak, like it's the fueling for me, right? It's the fueling for me. It's the interconnectedness, it's the mutuality, it's the reciprocity, it's the interdependence. Polyamory doesn't just have to include our romantic booze. Like, what is romantic? What is platonic? But like, what are those things? Who created those things? What do those things mean, right?
What does romance even mean?
What folks have named of like one person fulfilling all of my needs, like that is a lot. Like that's not really quite common in nature. To kind of explore and kind of unpack like where we see these examples of like how a lot of beings in this world have not lived in just a pockets of two. Also want to name and lift up that this connection with where two or more are gathered, that phrase, which is a biblical phrase, comes from public theologian J. Exodus Hooper. When we talk about where two or more are gathered, it opens up our possibilities for what relational formations can look like, as well as what they are moving towards, I just have a couple of different slides of different formations of where two or more are gathered are in nature, okay? So you see geese flying in a particular formation. Now I'll let y'all know right now, I am not a scientist, a hardcore scientist. I'm the scientist of my own body.
Is she saying
what I
geese
observe,
are polyamorous?
Per se. But there's a particular reasons as to why geese fly in this way, in this particular formations, right? Like, imagine geese a geese flying by themselves. Imagine a geese just flying with two geese. Yeah, just two geese. I was like, geese, goose? I mean, you could do with two geese, but why not have a gaggle of geese, right? Like, why not have a gaggle of geese? I think oftentimes a misconception about polyamory that often comes up is folks who are polyamorous are just reckless. They don't have systems. They're just out here willy-nilly doing all the things, loving people recklessly. They don't know what they're doing. I'm just like, there are systems to this. There are structures to this. There are intentions to this as well. Also, people who love quote unquote recklessly, like that's not just polyamorous people. That's anybody could be unintentional with their love. Anybody can be unintentional with their relational formations, right? Another example in nature, bumblebees. They exist there. It is systematized in a particular way based upon the value system of that particular community. Everybody try to keep the queen alive. We try to make honey. It's sweet out here, right? I don't know what bumblebees be thinking about per se. I just see what I observe. So I'm never going to assume what those formations mean from bumblebees. I'm just going to note that they exist together and it seems to be working. Where two or more are gathered, stars. I love stars, okay?
Stars are polyamorous.
Like me, you might love astrology like me, right? Between making meaning out of the constellations, which are just like structural meanings and definitions we make from a formation of stars. Constellations, making meaning of my life from constellations, white supremacy. Constellations, capitalism. Constellations, student loans. Like new formations, new meanings, new.
What? Hang on. What?
Making meaning out of the constellations, which are just like structural meanings and definitions we make from a formation of stars. Constellations, making meaning of my life from constellations, white supremacy. Constellations, capitalism. Constellations, student loans. Like, new formations, new meanings, new emphasis and value systems. Constellations, the North Star, is what led Harriet Tubman, aka Moses, to freedom, right? Looking into the sky, seeing the social constructed meanings of what the North Star meant for Black folks, helped a whole, well, we're still looking for freedom actually, but helped folks in that time period, enslaved folks in that time period, get to where they needed to go, right? I'm not gonna say we free right now because it's hard out here in these streets.
It's definitely not free to
Mycelium,
talk about polyamory on the internet.
mushrooms. I didn't used to like mushrooms, okay? I was struggling to eat them growing up, but now I can eat them. I don't know what happened. My taste buds changed. Maybe my formation changed, but there is research that mycelium or mushrooms are portals that can help us know what interdependence and mutuality looks like for millions and millions of years. Again, I'm not a scientist. I'm just telling you what I've heard from other people who are way more versed than me, and I will share some quotes later about mycelium in particular. But when you look at nature, where two or more are gathered, do you think mushrooms go romantic, platonic? I don't know. Do you think both stars go romantic, platonic? Sometimes people will make those constructions from stars, but it's not always, it's not always given what is given. I do want to acknowledge the text from which that phrase where two or more are gathered comes from, right? This is my own reimagination of this particular text. So if you're like, Mage, that's not biblical, honey, I'm not a Christian. These are just words on a page to me that I'm making meaning out of. So I'll read it out for folks to see. You can read it on the screen. If your loved one sins against you, go and point out the fault when the two of you are alone. If you are listened to, you have regained that one. But if you are not listened to, take one or two lovers along with you so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If that person refuses to listen to them, tell it to the community. And if the offender refuses to listen even to the community, let such a one be to you as someone without a community ethic or code. Truly, I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly, I tell you, if two of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my ancestors, those who came before me. For where 2 or 3 or more are gathered in my name, I am there among them. I am there among them. So if we were to look at this phrase, where 2 or more are gathered, and we look at it within the context of this text, at the end of the day, if you didn't get nothing from this presentation, nothing from this workshop, at the end of the day, where 2 or more are gathered, you can find yourself there. You can find yourself there. And let me tell you why you can find yourself there. I'm pulling from a Mushroom Mutualism and Community Care During Crisis article by Sophia Reynolds, Yeshaya Van Leeuwen, Matt Jones, and Natalie Sacker, talking about mushrooms, but also talking about this text. When we think about where 2 or more are gathered, when we think about community, when we think about polyamory and beyond, we are building a gateway to understanding all species and individuals as interdependent, right? They talk about masutake mushrooms come into being only through interspecies relations, and that plants collaborate with other species, species collaborate with one another, and that relationship is mutualistic. This is a quote from The Mushroom at the End of the World on the Possibility of Life in Capitalist Ruins by Anna Singh, where Anna talks about making worlds is not limited to humans. So when we're thinking about
Hang on. There is a book called The Mushroom at the End of the World on the Possibility of Life in Capitalist Ruins. Can someone please look that up? The Mushrooms at the End of the World on the Possibility of Life in Capitalist Ruins. Making worlds is not limited to humans. We know that beavers reshape streams as they make dams, canals, and lodges. In fact, all organisms make ecological living places, altering earth, air, and water. Without the ability to make workable living arrangements, species would die out. In the process, each organism changes everyone's world. Bacteria made our oxygen atmosphere, and plants help maintain it. Okay, I'm not reading that whole thing. Thank you, Reagan.
Polyamory, we're not just talking about the construction of man.
Thank you, Bob.
We're not just talking about this overrepresentation of humans, as Sylvia Winters would say, right? It's not limited to humans. Beavers be doing things. Organisms be doing things. We're talking about the elements, air, water, earth, fire. Each organism changes everyone's world making projects that overlap, allowing room for more than one species. Yes, Janae, this book definitely eats. It ate. It gobbled us up, okay?
Indeed.
These are the possibilities that polyamory can open up for us on a spiritual level. Because we're not just, I'm not speaking from the space of religious institutions like Christianity. I'm speaking from the space of indigenous ways of knowing and being and moving through the world that understands man not as the top of the hierarchy, but as the youngest species that still has little to know, that knows very little compared to our plant collaborators in this space.
Plant collaborators.
And then this last phrase or this last framework that I want to lift up, because man, time is running fast, is the concept of assemblage. Again, not a scientist, but this is what the book says. Assemblages are open-ended gatherings. They allow us to ask about communal effects without assuming them. They show us potential histories in the making. Skip. Non-human ways of being like human ones shift historically. For living things, species, identities are a place to begin, but they are not enough, right? Ways of being are emergent effects of encounters. Pause. What does that mean? I cannot define who I am without you. You cannot define who you are without me. What is a partner? What is a partner? What is a partner? What is a partner? But a being or an element that you connect with for mutual living and interdependence. That goes beyond romantic. That goes beyond sex. That goes beyond many things, right? But these are the questions that can come up when we expand our mindset from compulsive monogamy. Assemblages don't just gather life ways, they make them. How do gatherings sometimes become happenings that is greater than the sum of their parts? Okay. In conclusion, not forever, because there's so much more there, but in conclusion for this particular workshop space, what I want folks to understand or ruminate on or wrestle with, because you don't have to take my word for it. You could just be like, Mage just said this and I'm thinking about it. Love as mutual accountability, love as interdependent, and love as collective meaning making.
Oh,
if we go back
collective meaning making, you don't say.
This text, accountability shows up when we are able to vulnerably and safely bring things to one another. Interdependency shows up when we are able to loop other people in beyond just us, beyond just two, but more. And last but not least, collective meaning shows up when we see a thing, we name a thing, and we decide to make a decision about a thing together. My work's cited because we want to cite folks as they show up. I will stop sharing my screen. We'll open it up for questions in the last couple of minutes. I know that was a lot, but I don't apologize for it. Are there any final remarks or questions from folks in this space before we close out today? Yes, Praise. What's up, Praise? Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mage. I'm sick right now, so that's why my voice is scratchy as hell. But this chef's kiss, like I feel like we need like a whole 2-hour session to really debrief.
Definitely, we do. Absolutely, we should do that.
But I just feel really, 100%. Really grateful for the ways that you decenter like romance and sex when you talk about relationships, because our relationships just have to be more expansive than that when we think about community care, when we think about mutual aid and the ways that people need to be cared for and tended to. And I feel like that often just like falls into the cracks. And as like an ace arrow person, I'm like, yes, finally. We're talking about relationships in a way that feels a lot more meaningful. And thank you to everyone who was sharing. I was writing fast and furious is a phrase I like to say when I'm like trying to like, because I'm like, this is good as fuck. Oh my God, I need to come back to this. So this is just so good and nourishing. And I'm definitely going to be contemplating over those questions at the very beginning, because those were you went over them, you went into the meditation, those were heavy hitters. I'm like, I need to sit with this for like a good month at least. Like there's a lot to unpack in them. And I really appreciate you offering us such like nourishing prompts and like starting points.
Thank you, Ashe. Thank you, Praise. Bye-bye, Eve. We'll move to Janae.
Yeah, one thing that I'm sitting with is just how polyamory is also an opportunity to reflect on, the internal connectivity, the ways that we are reassembling ourselves in a world that requires us to really, partition and, just separate parts of ourselves. So I'm just sitting with what work that I'm currently doing is like, how can the self who doesn't believe that I can give myself permission to honor my needs and desires be in partnership with the practice of honoring that, even if the belief isn't, really sturdy there. So yeah, just really thinking about partnership internally as well.
Something that I always like to share with folks that I'm in relationship with, building relationship with across the board, are my 3 non-negotiables when it comes to building relationship. And those non-negotiables for me are: we value our autonomy, we value each other's agency, and we value each other's fierce commitment to love ourselves. And so for me, that was something that I needed, that I could offer to others, so that folks understood not just the ways in which I was going to engage with them in a relationship, but how I engage with myself. So I love what you shared, Janae. I really, really, the assembling of self in a world where we've been dismembered in a lot of different ways. It is 5:00 where I'm at, so we are closing on time. I see that Janae dropped a question for folks interested in sharing. Where are y'all at on the internet? I don't know if you want to expand more on that, Janae.
I was just offering, or asking rather, because there have just been so many rich things shared. Like, if folks are on Instagram preaching the same gospel, I would love to follow folks. So yeah, mostly just Instagram and nowhere else. But.
Yep. I'll let like folks, drop their little handles if they feel comfortable dropping their little handles, so they can connect with each other outside of this, so that we can continue the mutual interdependence outside of this space, as you feel led. But yes, that is a wonderful, wonderful sharing. Thank you. Anything from you, Roland?
I just want to say thank you. This was so very enriching and deeply moving, spiritual. And Mage, before we go, I have one other announcement after this, but would you like to give a shout out for your program coming up at the end of the month on the 30th?
Yes. So my program at the end of the month, I'm an artist first and foremost. And so I am in the process of making my 3rd zine out of the Center for LGBTQ and Gender Studies and Religion.
Okay, that's it. The rest just seems to be self-promotional, so we're not going to do that. All right, well, that was an incredibly valuable presentation that we got a great clip out of. That if you are unfamiliar with polyamory, this was probably a little bit of a good introduction to polyamory as a queer practice. Because we do perpetually need to overcome these bullshit conservative talking points, just saying this is all about sex. It's not all about sex. It has nothing to do with sex, actually. It has to do with a political movement. And you always have to remember that when you're watching the left, this is never about the things that people on the right think it's about, because they are fundamentally uneducated about what the left is. It is always a political movement to abolish capitalism. Always. Every time. And so if you start with that conclusion and then you pay attention to what they're saying, you're going to find that what they're saying always supports that conclusion. As we did find today, there were multiple mentions of the term of capitalism. There were multiple mentions of using polyamory as a way to subvert capitalism, to live an anti-capitalist lifestyle. It is always and perpetually about the destruction of capitalism. It has nothing to do with gay. It has nothing to do with trans. It has nothing to do with any of these. It has nothing to do with sex. It has nothing to do with any of it. It is always about the destruction of capitalism. And I am hurrying us along, guys, because in about 10 minutes, a little less than 10 minutes, we are going to be starting our spy stream. We have something else we need to do. That's why we had to go a little bit fast today. And our spy stream today is going to be, we are going inside a live leftist organizing call. I'm going to start the stream in about 10 minutes. The call starts at 7 p.m. tonight. And so you're going to get to see exactly what leftists say when they think you're not listening on their private calls. This is a supporter exclusive because spy streams are almost always supporter exclusive. It just makes it easier for me to manage the logistics of it and not get in trouble and not get copyright strikes and stuff like that. So if you want to join, head over to my Substack. That is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, and you can sign up for a membership and just go ahead and click on the post. And underneath this red box, you will find the links to join us tonight. If you are a supporter on the site, if you are a supporter on my locals, if you are a supporter on my Patreon, if you are a Twitter subscriber, if you are a YouTube channel member, you will also find the credentials to join on whichever of those platforms you support on. I posted on all of them. So if you're a supporter on a different site, I do appreciate that as well. And you are welcome to come and join us for Spy Stream, which will be starting expeditiously. And tomorrow I'm going to be back, and tomorrow we are doing Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. We are going to finish Against the Gender Nightmare tomorrow. We've already done 3 parts of Against the Gender Nightmare. We are doing the 4th tomorrow. We're going to finish it. If we even have to power through it, we need to move on to another text. Against the Gender Nightmare has been a really meaty text, and it's been great to analyze. It's been very nihilistic and very crazy, but we need to finish it up. So we will do that tomorrow at 5 p.m. We are also going to do our Queer Rope Spy stream at some point this week. Pay attention to that. And now I'm going to go get ready to do our spy stream tonight. So guys, thank you for hanging out with me, and I will see some of you for spy stream in a couple of minutes. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.